Hi everyone, thanks for joining this next section. Again, my name is Chris Plowman. I'm a Client Solution Manager at Magenic. In this video, I'm going to show how we can deploy our sample.NET application up into Google Compute Engine. So you see I've logged into my Google Cloud Platform console and selected the picture demo project that we're using. So if I jump down to Compute Engine and just take a look, that nothing should be here right now. And in fact, it's asking if I want to create a compute engine. So I could create my virtual machine here and set it up manually, but that would take a little while, right? I'd get a base install Windows machine that I'd have to set up the roles and features for IaaS and get everything set up. There's an easier way to do that, and that's by using some images that have already been sort of pre-configured, they're ready to go, and that's through Cloud Launcher. So if I click up in the menu and go to Cloud Launcher, I'll get this page where I can search for solutions. So I'm going to search for ASP.NET, and there's this ASP.NET framework that I can see has IaaS already set up as well as SQL Express. So it's all set for everything you need. So I'm going to click that and I'm going to say launch on Compute Engine. Okay, and now it's asking me to set up the machine itself. So the first thing I have is a name. So I can change this if I want. In this case, I can just leave it at ASP.NET 1. Then the zone, I want mine to be in US West 1C since that's close to where I'm at. And then I have information on the machine type. So I have a couple options here. I can either click this drop down and choose one of the pre-configured machine types, or I can say customize if my needs are more specific and don't fall into those already defined machine types. Maybe I want to have a whole lot of cores and I want the memory to be somewhat lower. I can drag these around to whatever I want. I'll go back to the basic view and I'll just choose a small virtual machine. Actually, I'm going to choose just a standard, N1 standard one. It'd be on 2016. I'm going to leave all this other stuff at the defaults. And you can see down here for firewall, it's already selected to allow HTTP and HTTPS traffic. I can do web deploy and I can do remote desktop. So now I just have to click deploy. And then we'll wait a couple minutes while that spins up. So you can see while it's running, it takes me over to Deployment Manager. Close this window. And we can see everything that's being done, which is nice. When things are running, you can get an idea of what's happening behind the scenes and when your instances are all ready. Now I'll go back over to Compute Engine. And I can see my virtual machines created. So this is the one that I actually want, ASP.NET 1. This is the coordinator image that helps get everything set up initially. We don't need to worry about this one at all. Everything we'll be using is ASP.NET 1. So I'll click into that image. And the first thing I want to do is set a Windows password so that I can log into this. So it already had my username. I just click set and it generated a password for me. I'll just copy this and save it someplace where I can reuse it later if I need to. And now I'm also going to download the RDP file so that I can easily remote desktop into this machine. I'm just going to move this into another folder where I can easily get to it. And then I'll go ahead and connect to that image. Okay, so now I'm in my virtual machine, and you can see I'm within the server manager for this local server, so I can configure it just like I would any other VM or physical machine. If I was running the full .NET framework, there wouldn't be anything I'd need to change, but since our sample is based on .NET Core, there's a couple items that need to get installed. So I just did a search for how to run .NET Core on IaaS, and what I need is this .NET Core Windows Server Hosting Bundle. So I'll go ahead and download and install that. Okay, so that's installed successfully. So now I'd need to restart the machine, which might be a good time as well to go ahead and check and see if there's any updates for Windows that need to be installed. So let me go ahead and reboot this machine, and then we'll come back. Okay, another thing I'm going to want to do on this machine is, because my sample application needs to store images in the file system, I need to elevate the permissions of the app pool. So I'm going to go to the IaaS manager, go to the default app pool, click Advanced Settings, and I'm going to change the identity to be the local system. Now, in a production application, you might want to choose something a little bit different so that it doesn't have quite so many permissions, but for our demo, this will work. So I'll say OK there. And now we can see that change. Okay, with the app pool now set, I can close this. And the next thing I want to do is set up my SQL Server. So I'm going to launch Management Studio. Okay, by default it pops up with the correct server name connecting to the SQL Express, but it's using Windows authentication. I'm actually going to switch this to SQL Server authentication. I'm going to use the SA login, and you might wonder where to find the password. Let me minimize this VM and go back over to Google Cloud. I'm in the details for my ASP.NET 1 image. And if I scroll down, you can see under custom metadata that there's a custom metadata property called, or with SA password as part of the name. So that's the password that I'll need. I'll copy that and go ahead and connect. So first thing I'm going to do is create the database that we're going to be using. I'll just call that PicShare. Now the other thing I want to do is set up a login that the application can use. So I'm going to give it a login name of PicShare app. I'm going to have that use SQL Server authentication. Give it a password. In this case, I'm going to disable the password policy so that this account can remain consistent. I'll change the default database to PicShare. And under user mappings, I'm going to click on PicShare so that that user is carried across, and I'm going to give him DB owner on this database. Obviously, if this were production, you could give it some lower privileges. So now I have a database and an account, but there's nothing in this database. So I need to apply the migrations. Now, I could do that through Visual Studio, or in this case, I'm just going to create a script and run it. So I'll say new query here, and now I'll minimize this VM, hop back over to my Visual Studio instance. I'm already in my PicShare project. You can see in Solution Explorer that I have it here. And I'm going to type script migration. So that's created all the SQL script I need. I'll just copy that, paste it in here, and I'll execute that query. Now if I refresh my tables, I'll see I have my migration history as well as my actual picture table that the application uses. So now I can close down my SQL Server Management Studio, and I'll go ahead and disconnect from this virtual machine. Okay, so with all that setup done, now we're actually ready to go ahead and deploy our application. So to get started, let's first take a look and make sure that we have the default site running. So I'm going to grab the external IP address for my VM, and I'm just going to plug that in to a browser window and make sure I get something. So yeah, there's the default IaaS page is up and running, so we know that that server is indeed acting as a web server serving up pages. So let me hop over to my project now, and I can look at the Google Cloud Explorer, and you can see here I have the PicShare Demo 1 project selected. So I'm going to go to Compute Engine, and there's my ASP server. If I right click on it, I have the option to save the publish settings. So I'll do that, and I'll have to give it some credentials. And if I pop back over, remember I saved that password that got generated, so I'm going to copy that and put that in here. I'm going to use those credentials. And now it's asking me to go ahead and save this. So I'll save it in the folder where I've put everything else. And there it is. Now within my project, I can go to Build, Publish, and I'm going to create a new profile. I'm going to import the profile. And that got created. Now there's one thing I need to do before I can actually use this profile. And let me first rename it just so I know what this is. So this is my GCP PicShare Demo 1. I'm going to go into settings for this, and I'm going to validate the connection. And it's going to say that this cert isn't trusted. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. So now my connection is validated. And the other thing I want to do is expand this database section. And I'm going to tell it I want to use a specific connection string at runtime. I'm going to paste in what that connection string is, but we can go through it quickly. So the server is going to be using the local server because the SQL Server and IaaS are on the same box. If you had split this out and done a separate SQL Server, then of course it would be the IP of that SQL Server instance. And in this case, I have the SQL Server Express instance that it's using. The database that we created was PicShare. And then this is the user ID that I created, that SQL Server application user is PicShare app. And I created a bad password, literally called bad password 1. So that's what we're going to use when we do the deployment so that the application can talk to the database. So with that, I have that saved and I can actually publish. And there we go, my publish succeeded. Let's hop back over to the browser, and where I had the IaaS default page before, I'm going to refresh. Okay, so you should get to the site that looks something like this. The results will be 0 since this is a new deployment. We can check that it's working by going to Upload, choose a file. We'll just pick a picture here and click Upload. Oh, and it should have uploaded by now. So it looks like we have a problem, and I think I know what that is actually. So let's jump back over here to the publish settings. Go under settings, And look at the, yep, under the database, this should just be 1/. Save. All right, let's publish again. Publish succeeded. Let's pop back over to the site. We'll refresh. Okay, it looks the same. Let's see if it actually works now. And we'll just reuse that same caption, outdoor fun, upload. Hey, and this time it works. So there we go. We've been able to successfully deploy a .NET Core app up to Google Compute Engine. In a next series of videos, I'll show how we can take the same app and put it up into Google's App Engine flexible environment, and some pros and cons of doing that, why you might want to do that. But for now, we've got this successfully running, so that'll be it for this video. Thank you.